Okay, this is the second half of going over the problems on the Unit 3 mini test review. This problem here says that the table below shows the amount of money earned at a business as a function of the number of days since the business has been opened. All right. So you have the number of days since the business has been open, and you have the amount of money earned. Okay. Now the question here says, what is the rate of change of the amount of money the business makes with respect to the number of days it's been since the business has been opened? Okay. And it's asking for dollars per day. Now you see up here we have 2 days and $136. And then we have 4 days and $272. Okay. So if we are finding the rate of change is another way of saying the slope, or the slope is the rate of change. So really we're looking for slope. And remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. All right, and then the formula that we can use, m is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The change in y over the change in x. So we just need to plug in our numbers. So for this one, slope is equal to, we'll start with our y's, our outputs. So we have 272 minus 136. So we're finding the rate of change here, or the difference between 272 and 136. So let's plug that in. 272 minus 136. And then we're going to find the change in x, which is 4 and 2. 4 minus 2. And what does all that equal? So the change in y is going to actually equal 136. And the change in x, 4 minus 2, is 2. And then when you divide 136 divided by 2, the final answer is going to be 68. So basically what this is saying is that the rate of change, the amount of money the business makes with respect to the number of days it has been opened, is $68 per day. So the slope, the rate of change, was 68 per day. All right. Next question here. The graph below shows the linear relationship between the maximum amount of money earned and the number of days worked. So we have days worked on the x-axis, and we have money earned on the y-axis. What is the best representation of the rate of change of the maximum amount of money earned with respect to the number of days worked? So obviously we have this graph here. We're working a number of days. This is our input, and then we have our outputs that are graphed. So we have, I guess this would be our domain, okay, and then our range. But we're trying to figure out the best representation of the rate of change, which is going to be, what is the dollars earned per day, okay? But what we're finding is the rate of change, or the slope. Remember, the slope is the change in y over the change in x. All right. And we use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so we're going to use what we have here. Now, I'm going to highlight some points. We have a point here, and we have one here as well that we could use. Now, we have others that we could use, but we're going to start there. And what are these points? Let's go ahead and make sure we understand what these points are. This point here, the X is 5, so 5 days and $1,000. And then we have 10 days for the X, and the output is $2,000. All right. So if you wanted to find that rate of change, you could just plug in the y's. You could find the difference in the y's and the difference in the x's. So we could say 2,000 minus 1,000 over, and then the days is just 10 minus 5. So 10 minus 5. When you work that out, you end up with 1,000 for the change in the y over 5 for the change in x. And we would simplify that to 200. So basically what we're saying here, the best representation is the fact that the maximum amount of money earned was $200 per day, which represents the rate of change and the slope of this graph. All right, the graph of a function is shown on the grid. So you can see this graph on this grid. Hopefully you can tell that it has a negative slope. It's going downhill as we move from left to right. What is the ordered pair that best represents the location of the y-intercept? Okay, so the ordered pair of the y-intercept, remember the y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis, and you can see here that it is at 1, 2, 3, but the x, the ordered pair, remember an ordered pair always has an x and a y, so the x and the y, and this one specifically, when x is 0, y is at 3. So again, x is 0, we don't go right or left, and we go up 3, and we see that is where it crosses. So the ordered pair that represents the y-intercept is 0, 3. Okay, this says a function is graphed below. Identify the 0 of the linear function. Okay, the 0 is another way of saying the x-axis. So where does this graph cross the x-axis? And it is right here. So come over here and I'm going to highlight that point, and it is at 3. Okay, so the 0 is 3. Now it is an ordered pair. Okay, so when x is 3, the output is 0. The y is 0. That's why we call it a 0. Okay, so again, in this graph or in this function, when you plug in a 3, your input is 3, your output is 0. The 0 of this function is 3. All right, that is the end of this review.